Wait until you hear how Darth Maul's very first real encounter with Jedi actually played out, because it's nothing like the version most fans imagine. And there's one specific detail in this encounter that quietly explains why Maul never fights like any other Sith we see later, a weapon waiting to be used. So before we even get to that first encounter, you need to understand what Maul actually was at this point in the timeline, because he wasn't just a Sith apprentice in the usual sense. He was something much more controlled. Under Darth Sidious, Maul wasn't trained to think like a future master or a political manipulator the way Sith like Dooku or even Vader eventually were. He was trained as a weapon from the beginning, and everything about his development reflects that purpose. His combat style alone tells you a lot, because he wasn't just as skilled with a lightsaber, he was engineered to be overwhelming. He trained relentlessly with dual-bladed combat, eventually building his own weapon using plans that Sidious had hidden away in ancient Sith archives, which already ties him directly to older Sith traditions rather than anything modern. And what's interesting is how personal that weapon was. Maul himself reflects on the pain and blood that went into constructing it, and not just his own, which tells you that even before facing a Jedi, his identity as a Sith was already built through violence and suffering. Now layer that with his mental conditioning. Sidious didn't just train Maul to fight, he trained him to hate, and very specifically to hate the Jedi. At one point, Maul is taken to Malachor, where he's forced to experience the deaths of ancient Sith by breaking in their ashes, reliving their destruction at the hands of the Jedi. That isn't symbolic training, that's direct psychological shaping. So by the time Maul is ready to face a Jedi, he doesn't just see a target, he sees the target of a lifetime of cultivated rage. And here's where things start to shift, because even with all that training, Maul is still being held back. The hunger to face a Jedi. Now this is the part most people miss, because Maul doesn't immediately get sent after a Jedi, he is made to wait. And that waiting becomes a problem. Sidious is very clear with him. Do not reveal yourself, do not engage the Jedi, and do not risk exposing the Sith before the larger plan is ready. And he enforces that with a real threat, making it clear that Maul could be killed if he disobeys. But Maul's entire identity is built around confrontation, and that creates this tension where he's constantly on the edge of acting too soon. So instead of real missions against the Jedi, he starts doing something else. He hunts, not just targets, but actual creatures like Rastars on Twankiti, where he practices tracking, anticipation and control. And while that might sound like simple training, the way he approaches it tells you everything about his mindset. He deliberately avoids using his lightsaber in front of others to maintain secrecy, even when it would be easier, which shows that discipline is still there. But at the same time, he studies these creatures, how they move, how they attack, how they hunt in packs, and he compares them to himself, because unlike those creatures, Maul isn't free, he has a master, and that realization feeds directly into his impatience. So when an opportunity finally appears, something even close to a Jedi, it's not just a mission, it's release. The setup, a Jedi in chains. During a mission in the Kellic system, Maul is sent to eliminate pirates interfering with the Trade Federation, which on the surface seems like just another controlled assignment. But then something unexpected happens. One of the pirates mistakes Maul for a Jedi and offers information to save his life. And that information changes everything. He reveals that a Jedi Padawan has been captured and is going to be sold at an auction. And now, for the first time, Maul has a direct path to what he's been waiting for, a Jedi. So Maul shifts immediately from his original objective and begins tracking this lead, eventually assembling a group of bounty hunters and making his way to Nar Shaddaa to locate the auction. And what's interesting here is how he operates. He doesn't rush in blindly, he infiltrates, he manipulates, he even adopts a false identity to move through the situation without exposing himself, which shows that despite his hunger for combat, he still follows the larger Sith principle of secrecy. But underneath all of that, the goal is singular. Find the Jedi. If you're enjoying the Star Wars deep dive, it's practically all we do here, so you might want to stick around. The first encounter. Now this is the moment everything builds towards. Maul finally finds the Padawan, Eldra Kaitis, being held for auction after surviving a pirate attack, and instead of immediately killing her, he allows the situation to play out just long enough to control how the confrontation happens. He intercepts her after she's taken from the auction, eliminates her captors, and then reveals himself directly to her. And this is the key moment, because this isn't an ambush, this is intentional. He reveals himself as a Sith, he hands back her lightsaber, and then he fights her. That choice tells you everything about what Maul wanted from this encounter, because this wasn't just about killing a Jedi, he wanted to fight, and once it begins you can see how his training translates into real combat. At first, Kaitis actually gains the upper hand by using the environment against him, triggering a landslide that buries him, which immediately shows that she's not inexperienced or helpless. But this is where Maul's conditioning takes over. He doesn't panic, he doesn't retreat, and he doesn't hesitate. He rises from beneath the debris and strikes decisively, killing her in a single direct action. And just like that, the encounter ends. No prolonged duel, no drawn out exchange, just efficiency. Why this fight matters. Now here's what's really interesting about this moment. It's not just that Maul kills a Jedi, it's how he approaches the fight that defines him. Because even though he's trained as a weapon, he still chooses to make this a direct confrontation rather than a silent execution. He gives the Padawan a chance to fight back, which might seem like arrogance at first, but it actually lines up with how Sidious trained him. Maul wasn't just meant to eliminate the Jedi, he was meant to prove the superiority of the Sith through combat, and at the same time, the way he ends the fight shows the other side of that training. There's no hesitation when it matters, no emotion interrupting the outcome, just action. And when he returns to Sidious, there's one detail that stands out above everything else. His master already knows what he's done, and Maul doesn't express satisfaction. He tells him his desire to face the Jedi isn't fulfilled, which means that even after finally getting what he wanted, it wasn't enough. And once you see that, it becomes very hard to unsee what Maul actually represents at this stage. He isn't just a Sith apprentice, he's a weapon that's still waiting to be fully unleashed. The bigger picture. This changes how you look at his later appearance in the Phantom Menace, because by the time he faces Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, that isn't his first Jedi encounter, it's just the first one the galaxy sees. By then, he's already tested himself. He's already proven that he can kill a Jedi in direct combat. And more importantly, he's already learned that one victory isn't enough to satisfy what's been building inside him. So when he finally steps into the open against the Jedi Order, he's not experimenting, he's executing. And everything about that traces back to this first encounter. Let me know in the comments, did you know about Maul's first encounter with the Jedi? And how did no other Jedi ever hear about this? If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe and let's uncover the galaxy's greatest secrets together. Thanks for watching.